we move into the next news video, and that is bringing us up with more updates on NXT. More updates. Well, actually, yes, more updates from NXT last night, and also updates from Money in the Bank, as the World Heavyweight Championship match has been announced for Money in the Bank. That is, if Seth Rollins can defeat Braun Breaker on the June 20th edition of NXT, as last night on NXT it was announced that the June 20th and June 27th editions of NXT will have a special feature, that being NXT Gold Rush, or special editions in the programming, NXT Gold Rush, with every championship being on the line. The only one I'm not sure about is the NXT World Tag Team titles, as unless the June 27th edition will feature the winners of the number one contender match from the previous week against Gallus, but the tag team title match has yet to be announced. We do have a North American title match set to take place, as Wesley and Tyler Bate will finally collide one-on-one for the North American Championship, but Mustafa Ali is the special guest referee for that matchup. This should be a match that tears down the house, as Wesley has had an amazing run as North American Champion and showed that he does have some potential to be a lot more in the WWE. Tyler Bate is one of my favorites and has been, as you guys are aware, since I started recording. But also the following week, Carmelo Hayes will defend his championship on the 27th edition of NXT against Baron Corbin. The NXT World Champion will have his second title defense against the man from the main roster, Baron Corbin. And of course, Thea Hale will be the first person to challenge Tiffany Stratton for the NXT Women's Championship, also on the 27th edition of NXT. But Chase U is going to be in the forefront, as Thea Hale is the youngest number one contender in the history of WWE at the young age of 20, which is absolutely insane. But also on the June 20th edition of NXT, NXT Gold Rush Night 1, as you would call it, it is Cora Jade and Dana Brooke, and as I mentioned, a triple threat tornado tag team match to crown the number one contenders for the NXT tag team titles, including some tag teams that you have not seen for quite a while. But offhand, I don't remember everybody, but we'll talk about it as the show gets closer. Also, Allison Danger has potentially re-signed with the company. Allison Danger was brought on before the pandemic in 2020, but was one of the members of the roster that was let go in 2020 due to roster cuts. I didn't know this at the time, but Allison Danger actually moved her family to Florida following her signing with WWE, which honestly, it is extremely unfortunate that WWE then proceeded to release her a few short weeks after her moving her family to the state that the company was located in, as a show of good faith to WWE that she was going to invest fully in being a member of the WWE roster. I don't know what to say, but the fact is, she has not fully re-signed with the company, but she was brought back as a guest coach, which is something that a lot of people in the company are happy about, because a lot of people in the company are big fans of Allison Danger, who is the sister of fellow NXT coach Steve Corino. So I do hope for the best for Allison Danger, as NXT does need to update their status or change something within the ranks of the Performance Center, because a lot of people down there have been getting injured, and if a lot of people are getting injured, you need to change something to prevent the injuries from continuing. But that's just my opinion. And also, I just want to point out, there were a lot of mistakes that were made during the pandemic era, including a lot of releases that shouldn't have taken place, and basically WWE has corrected some of them and needs to correct a lot more. One of them, now that I know what happened, one of them is, of course, Alice in Danger. With that being said, let's move on. As, again, NXT Gold Rush is a 2-week plan for NXT and is basically the bridge for NXT specials ahead of the with the fact that the next NXT pay-per-view is not set to take place until the end of next month. Excuse me. Which the next NXT pay-per-view is not set to take place until the end of next month. So, well, I mean, that explains why they're having NXT specials to bridge the gap. But speaking of pay-per-views and a little bit of a gap, we have not had a pay-per-view from WWE since Night of Champions back in Saudi Arabia at the end of last month. At the end of last month. So, July the 1st will be the first pay-per-view since since Saudi Arabia, and that is Money in the Bank from the O2 in London, and the first sets of matches outside of the Money in the Bank matches were announced. Those are, in fact, Cody Rhodes versus Dominic at Money in the Bank, and Finn Balor will challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship. Finn Balor will challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship against Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank as well. Again, that is if Seth Rollins can defeat Braun Breaker for the World Heavyweight Championship on the June 20th edition of NXT. As that match is also set to take place the night after Seth has a open challenge match defending the World Heavyweight title on Raw next week in an open challenge ahead of the following night defending his title against Braun Breaker on NXT, which is the reason why Baron Corbin against the NXT World title will be the night 2 of the NXT Gold Rush. But now we shift over to a good update. Now we shift over to a big update as Kofi Kingston has been injured for most of the year so far, and explained that the injury took place in a match with Drew McIntyre, and basically that he's progressing well. I mean, that there was no timetable for a potential return, and nothing that points to when or if Kofi could be returning in the not too distant future or anything like that. It's basically just Kofi will be returning soon, sooner rather than later, and that's about it. I mean, he's progressing well. And that's all we got from it. But now, before we jump to the big news from WWE, it is big news from AEW, because in 3 short days on Saturday, June 17th, it is the debut of AEW's next set of a newest program, and also the return we never thought we'd see happen. That is CM Punk alongside FTR against the Bullet Club Gold and Samoa Joe, the Ring of Honor World Television Champion, I should say, in a 6-man tag team match as the main event of AEW Collision on June the 17th. But Tony Khan was on with Barstool Wrestling and spoke about the potential brand split between AEW Collision and AEW Dynamite, and said that there will be no brand split at this particular moment, and that people will be able to jump between Collision and Dynamite, but some champions may be appearing on Collision more than Dynamite and vice versa, which I think would be a perfect way to spotlight certain champions. Sort of like Orange Cassidy was more known for appearing on Rampage than appearing on Dynamite. But with that being said, I think this is the best way possible to do it, because you don't need to do a brand split to have people exclusive to one brand. You could just make it where people are more known for appearing on one brand than the other, and make it their brand. You know, sort of like sort of like what I've been saying with Orange Cassidy, and having certain people appear on Rampage and have their identity be Rampage, or Rampage be their identity. You know, and make Rampage stick out, or make the other show stick out, because you're going to see people like Miro or Andrade or Punk more often on Collision than on Dynamite. You know, that's all I got to say. But I think it's something that none of us were expecting, and all of us are excited for. Saturday, June the 17th, the debut of AEW Collision. Now, also, the last update comes from WWE, and that is Drew McIntyre will be representing WWE at the Special Olympics in Germany. Drew McIntyre has not been seen on WWE programming since WrestleMania, and there's been a lot of conversations about Drew's contract and when or if Drew's going to be returning. I think that it is a good step in the right direction, or it might be me just using my logic that it's a step in the right direction that Drew is representing WWE at a big event like the Special Olympics. But Drew wants to do something special and meaningful, and that is the reason why he has not come back to WWE programming, because he just doesn't want to flutter around in WWE. You know, he doesn't want to just flutter around in WWE on programming within the roster, I guess, sort of like he was after Roman Reigns came, after his feud with Roman Reigns. But the fact of the matter is, that's the case with Drew. That's what Drew McIntyre should do. He should not be fluttering around. He should be doing something more meaningful. He should be the person who accepts the open challenge from Seth Rollins on Raw next week. He should be somebody that does something meaningful and is a featured performer on the program, because he carried the company during the pandemic era. And if Drew does not have something that he could sink his teeth into, then that's WWE's fault for not seeing the value and how much of an asset McIntyre could be to WWE. With that being said, though, that is it for me, and I will see you in the next video.